Hey there, and welcome to the Divorce Planner Podcast. I'm divorce prep coach Alex Beatty. Creating a parenting plan during divorce can feel overwhelming. You're trying to predict the future, protect your kids, and navigate legal requirements, all while dealing with your own emotions about the end of your marriage. A comprehensive parenting plan anticipates challenges before they arise, from schedule changes to behavior concerns. Today, I'm talking to Chicago-based family law attorney Morgan Given all about the essential strategies you need for creating a parenting plan agreement that actually works. Whether you're starting the divorce process or need to modify an existing agreement, this conversation has actionable advice from both legal and emotional perspectives. Let's dive in. Today, I'm so excited to be getting into parenting plans that are as bulletproof as possible with my guest, Morgan Given. Morgan is a Chicago-based lawyer and mediator with over a decade's worth of experience practicing in family law exclusively. That's really important, actually. When you're going to have these consultations with family law attorneys, kind of the percentage of their practice in family law tells you a lot about their expertise and also, quite frankly, the relationships they have within that community. And you really want that when you have somebody who's working on your behalf to try to come up with a deal with another attorney or mediator. She's litigated complex custody trials and high net worth divorces, but her true passion is helping her clients avoid the expense and heartache of a long, drawn out process. And with the average cost of a divorce hovering around 20 grand now, saving time and money is the name of the game, as well as your sanity. But Morgan, thank you so much for joining me. Not only are parenting plans one of the most important and detailed aspects of a divorce judgment, it's also one of the most emotionally triggering. I know for myself, that was the only part of my mediation where I actually had to excuse myself and gather myself in the hallway, because no parent goes into starting a family thinking, oh, I'm only going to have my kids for a certain percentage of the time, and when we talk about parenting plans, especially for people who maybe it's not an amicable split, if it's contentious, if it's high conflict, the more information you pack in, the better. I think people get stuck on broad terms like joint custody. Could you break down like specific elements that make a parenting plan really comprehensive and enforceable, especially in those high conflict situations?
Yeah, I think it's good advice to not get stuck on the labels, like talking about custody, or even when people talk about percentages, I want 50-50, or people come to me and say, I want 85-15. No, really, I think the best way to think about it is there's two components to the parenting. There's the parenting time, which is where do the kids actually stay? What is the schedule? And then there is how you make decisions for them. And in my state, we separate those decisions into four categories: religion, extracurriculars, and the big ones, medical and educational. So in your parenting plan, like the real essential items, you're figuring out how do you make those important decisions for the kids. You're setting forth a schedule, and the schedule has to include, of course, holidays, vacation time, travel. I think those are the essential component. Now, there are so many options and bells and whistles you can add on top of that. And those options are incredibly important. I know we'll get into those, but really breaking it down to those essential components and starting there is important. And don't be wedded to the label. I really encourage people to think about, well, what is the actual schedule that you're proposing? Don't tell me 50-50. Don't tell me I want custody. Tell me, I think the kids, Monday, Tuesday should be here, Wednesday, Thursday be here. Like really break it down, and you can tie it to their actual needs and schedule and the parents' actual schedules, availability, and their historical time with the kids.
I love that you break down what areas need to be covered in like a 4-quadrant, which is great. So I would say a shortcut is like take a piece of paper, run a line down horizontally and vertically, and then make each section one of those 4 quadrants and put those points under it to start really thinking about it. I also love that you mentioned coming in with a plan. That's something I actually work with my clients on, right? And a lot of people always going like 50-50, I want it. Sometimes that's not feasible. Like the goal of divorce with kids, it's always the benefit of the children, but understanding their schedule, their needs, and especially if you have 2 working parents, the complexity of juggling that and accommodating people who have a tougher schedule is the name of the game. So taking ownership and kind of coming into your divorce attorney, like for somebody to come and sit down with you, Morgan, and really say, here are the things that are important to me. Here's the reality of our schedules. Then Morgan or her colleagues can really start to say, great, we can start building that out to propose something that's going to work for the whole family.
And that's where I think the preparation is so critical. I can tell when clients have prepared before they've come to me, and they do sometimes have, this outline. And it is really, really helpful to have this information that I can work with. I know where I need to ask for more information, but I think also for the client, they've thought through this and they're not, sometimes people don't really know what they want. And I think it's really helpful to go through that exercise before even meeting with your attorney, certainly before mediation or negotiation, but do it in advance of your initial, long conversation with the attorney too.
I love that. I do have a question that I want to get to. If the parenting plan says the minor child should spend one weekend a month with dad, he has not taken her. Should I insist legally? What are the ramifications of him not?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say you certainly don't have to insist that the child go. You can't force someone to exercise parenting time, and we probably don't want to do that if someone doesn't want to be involved. However, I would probably encourage this client to reach out to the dad and ask him about it and encourage him to do it. You don't have to do it every single month, but it's a good thing to do to be able to show the court later, hey, I encouraged this. I facilitated this parenting time. He still hasn't done it. And that's evidence that you could later use if, for example, you wanted to modify the plan to say that he shouldn't be having this parenting time anymore. He's not using it. It's just disappointing our child and messing with my ability to schedule things. You can really then show, hey, I've done everything I could. He is just not interested.
Documenting everything is really important, whether it's communicating how you've reached out, whether it's the days that have come and gone. And I would also tack on to that if we're in a situation that's dealing with support issues, keep track of that too, because if a person is missing their time and support amounts are based on that, you're going to want to equalize that down the road because you have that child more than was already agreed to. We'll be back after a quick break. Feeling overwhelmed about the possibility of a divorce and not sure where to start? Book a free 15-minute strategy call with me. During our time, we'll talk about where you are in the process and what next steps could be. To schedule your call and learn more about my coaching program, head over to www.thedivorceplanner.net/coaching. Let's get back to today's episode. I just want to kind of jump into some of the most commonly overlooked details in parenting plans that maybe you've seen that lead to conflicts down the road.
There's so many, but the things that came to mind are sometimes people they have a deadline is coming to enroll the kids in school. Say your kids are young, you haven't chosen what grade school they're going to yet. I think it's very helpful to include a deadline for the parents to exchange information about what school they want the kids to go to, and then have a provision that says if there's no agreement by this date, maybe the parties mediate. And then you're not going to be faced with a situation where you're waiting until 1 month before school is supposed to start and you're hustling to get to court. The judges are going to be frustrated that nothing has been done. The same can be said for summer camp every year. I think it's really helpful to say by February 1 or March 1, summer camps fill up really fast. Include a deadline for that in your decree. Also including specific times. I see so many times it says holiday, Christmas is dad in even years. Well, what is Christmas? I mean, when does this start? You need to have specific times. Another one that I see a lot is international travel issues. If the kids don't have passports yet, it's difficult to then have to come back to court again. And this has never been addressed. I put in my agreements, this is how they get the passports. Both parents are agreeing to fill out the forms, weigh it out specifically, what consent is required or not before international travel. You really want your plan to be specific because if you do have to enforce it, the judge needs to be crystal clear on what exactly the other parent did or did not do. So those are a couple things that I have specifically litigated, several times.
I think that is a really important ticking clock. And the fact that you said camps by February, you have to kind of think that far in advance because we all know that things book up really quickly. So you don't want to miss those deadlines. I think that's such a smart thing for you to have added in to add to a parenting plan. What do you think that you found language wise in a parenting plan, things that maybe aren't clear enough that have led to issues down the road, like a misinterpretation of something?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely if there isn't time, like specific times addressed, for holidays and it doesn't say, when things end. I also often see when people say there will be makeup time, that leads to a ton of conflict because how are you going to agree on this makeup time? And what happens if you don't agree? And when does it occur? And so I'm always hesitant about putting in makeup time provisions unless they're really explicitly outlined as to how they work because it can just cause more problems. I've also seen problems with right of first refusals. People sometimes will ask, or I've seen it in judgments, right of first refusal, 1 hour. Anytime someone's not available for 1 hour, they need to tell the other parent. And it just leads to so much micromanagement and conflict between the parents. I like right of first refusals, but I prefer it to be like 12 hours or an overnight. I mean, it's specific for every family, of course, but I've definitely seen that be a problem.
I love that. I'm going to jump to things that I see coming up again and again, which are when I have clients who come to me who are divorcing from a spouse who has an issue of alcohol issues, or if they're overindulging in states that are legal, things like marijuana, and always asking, how do you address those? And can you address those issues in a parenting plan?
Oh, absolutely. Very frequently, when there are substance issues, there are prohibitions on parents using those substances during their parenting time. Sometimes we say no one will drink to the point of intoxication, but sometimes there should be no drinking, period. Because, of course, for some people who have true problems with addiction, they can't just have a beer at the barbecue. So you can have this prohibition that says no drinking during the parenting time. And this is also important for 12 hours before the parenting time because you don't want them to have drank an hour before pickup. When there is a demonstrated problem, then there can be more serious requirements, including that the parent has to blow into an at home breathalyzer
Yeah.
through something like SoberLink. And it can be for a set time period. It's not often forever. Maybe we'll say for the first 6 months, they have to blow before their parenting time and also at random intervals. I think that's important too to include. And this is something any attorney who's familiar with alcohol issues can really craft specific language. And then, of course, if there's a problem, if this is occurring during the parenting time, you may have to be more stringent. And if they blow, they don't have their parenting time, but also maybe they have supervised parenting time for a while, or they have to go through a treatment program and show proof that they're going to meetings or going to rehab. The court takes it seriously. There can be breathalyzers installed in their car that they can't dismantle, in order for them to start their car. There's a lot of options. I'm always also preaching the PETH test, PETH, which is a test that looks back at drinking history over the last 2 to 4 weeks. So it's a really interesting test to determine, has there been a problem? Do we need to do SoberLink? Because it's a little bit easier. You can not drink for 3 days and probably pass a BAC test.
I definitely have clients who have a spouse who has to deal with SoberLink. It's very common. So I would also offer just knowing how delicate a subject it is, there's no shame around it. And being as specific as possible is going to put you in a position to avoid issues down the line. Oh, we didn't talk about, oh, I didn't know, when it's clearly drawn out. And by the way, even in the most amicable of divorces, memories fade over time, things come up, perhaps tensions arise, maybe communication isn't as good as it used to be, on top of if you're in a high conflict situation. So having to revisit anything is like poking a bear. The specificity that you just talked about, especially when it comes to alcohol and marijuana, where illegal, I think is incredibly helpful because even in the best of circumstances, people are uncomfortable talking about those things. But when we're dealing with kids, it's imperative that you tackle these things head on for the benefit of the children. We'll be right back after a quick break. Subscribe to the Divorce Planner's weekly newsletter and get divorce prep tips, financial planning tools, and expert insights delivered discreetly to your inbox. Sign up at www.thedivorceplanner.net. Let's get back to today's episode. Can you walk us through how to create boundaries around communication and decision making that actually are going to work in real world co-parenting that reflect whatever you're putting into that parenting plan?
Yeah, I think this is something you should also be addressing in your parenting plan, how the parents communicate. And it can be as simple as saying, the parents will communicate via text or email, but in the event of an emergency, they will pick up the phone and call one another. But parents can also benefit from using a parenting communication app, Our Family Wizard, Talking Parents. It keeps a record of all the communications. It has a very helpful calendar, other functions for sharing finances. But in terms of organizing information, you can have specific threads. So if here's our extracurricular thread, here's our summer camp choice thread. It is easy to use. And I think that organization will lend itself to people not getting off topic and starting to talk about things that are really not related to the children. I also sometimes will include language that says, if someone sends a message requesting information or asking for consent to do something like to enroll the kids in basketball or change the child's dentist, and the other parent does not respond within a set amount of time, like 48 hours or 72 hours, then that is deemed consent. And so this is really helpful when you have a co-parent who will blow things off and not respond to messages. Now you can move ahead with your life and enroll them in basketball. So I think that's really helpful. And then the final thought I had was I did this recent reel about Chat GPT, which I thought was so interesting because so many people commented about how they use Chat GPT to communicate with their ex. I had no idea it was so widely used. And they use it to help them craft responses. So they'll feed their ex's message into Chat GPT or maybe feed their own reply and ask the app to make it more professional, more concise, remove emotion. And it really seems to work. I mean, you're not going to just copy and paste this response unedited, but it can help you to formulate a response and also process a little bit.
I love that. First of all, I want to say the whole specificity of if I reach out to my co-parent about a question and within 48 to 72 hours get a response, that's an automatic you concede. That's a game changer, Morgan. Like that is a piece of gold that you really dropped. By the way, most attorneys would like charge you a consultation fee to know that. So thank you so much. I just want to kind of wrap up, like going back, you touched on kind of how to handle holidays. Okay, we're alternating holidays, and then on the birthdays, we do this and that. But if you could go into give me a little more information about how detailed people should get. And also, it's like, what are ways to minimize future conflicts? We know that you might be approaching this parenting plan when your kids are in elementary school. Their lives are going to change in middle school and high school. So I'm just going to lob those to you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of having tiebreaker language for things like holidays. If there's winter break is divided in half, who gets that extra day? Even odd. For summer vacation, you always want to include a tiebreaker, a date for you to exchange dates for your vacation. And even years, mom gets first pick, odd years, dad gets first pick. In terms of the document being flexible and breathable, you do need to recognize that you can always adjust things day to day with your co parent by agreement. Now, obviously, that's the goal. And we all hope that you can just shove this allocation judgment in a drawer and figure things out on your own. But there are some things you can anticipate are going to be challenges. Enrolling the child in school, that's when we know there's going to be a transition. I would identify that in your plan and set a deadline that we're going to revisit things at this date. You can also, include things about if someone knows that they are going to move, they're going to change states. Perhaps you can negotiate for that now and say, there is permission that someone can move. This is where they can go. And if and when they do, the schedule is going to be X, or the parents will revisit and come up with a new schedule at that time. That is something you can incorporate into the plan. So you can somewhat add some flexibility, but not everything can be predicted, of course. So I think it's helpful to have a regular check-in with your co-parent. You can include this in the plan too, that on a yearly basis, you're going to sit down, revisit things, look at the children's schedule, look at both of your schedules, see what may need to be adjusted.
This conversation has made me so happy, Morgan. Thank you so much for sharing so many specific tips and details to include in your parenting plan. It really kind of ran the gamut from what's expected to the unexpected and to more challenging high conflict situations, as well as alcohol or marijuana abuse. For that, I am deeply grateful. Morgan, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
That's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you found it helpful. For more free resources, check out my blog at www.thedivorceplanner.net/blog. You'll find articles on how to emotionally and financially prepare for divorce, gain insights into the process from divorce experts, and empower yourself with tips and tools that make your divorce journey easier. And you can follow me on Instagram at the.divorce.planner, on Facebook at Divorce Prep, and on YouTube at The Divorce Planner for daily divorce prep tips and support. I've helped hundreds of clients and thousands more with my digital divorce prep tools prepare for divorce, and I'd be honored to support you too. I'm Alex Beatty, and this has been the Divorce Planner Podcast. Until next time, remember, divorce is hard. Preparing for one doesn't have to be.